G'day guys, welcome back to Supercoach with DR. Merry Christmas. Santa's already come early to me. He has brought me a new microphone, so I'm hoping that the audio quality has dramatically improved since the last video. I do apologise for that. Next on the wish list is a new camera, but what I'm going to focus on for today's video is I'm going to take a look at the Dogs midfield going in to 2021. Now we know that they've already got a star-studded lineup running through the middle there. Blokes like Bont, McRae, Dunkley, Hunter, Libba, Baz, who really broke out last year. And we've got guys like Wallace, Lipinski, McLean, who are also capable midfielders that just can't get a look in there at the moment. There's simply not enough room for all these players to run through there. And why do we have some slight concerns going into 2021? Well, we know that the Dogs are a really active player during the trade period, and they did bring in Adam Treloar, who we know plays his best football through the midfielder and is really one of those uber primos. And what does that mean for all these other guys that have been playing for the midfield? Is it going to affect them negatively? Is it going to have a positive effect on some? We think that someone's probably got to miss out. Who is that player going to be? Well, I'm really not too sure. I certainly don't have all the answers, but what we can do is we can take a look at some of the numbers from last year when all these guys were playing in the same side and make some educated predictions and some educated guesses based on some of the data that we've got and what we know about the history of some of these players. But before we get into all that sort of stuff, I think it's important to take a look at how much these guys are going to set us back and where they're available in Supercoach 2021. So Jack McRae, no surprise, he's the most expensive Dogs midfielder. He's 650,100. Bont just behind him, 623,900. Hunter, 618,500. Treloar, 587,600. Libba, just under 570. Smith, 494,600. And Dunkley is the only Dogs midfielder that has DPP status this year. You can select him in the forward line and he'll set you back 560,200. So automatically, Dunkley is probably one that I'll be having a really close look at, purely because he can be selected as a forward. So let's have a look at the predicted best 22 going into next year. Now again, this is very much a guess. This isn't coming from Bevo or anything inside the Bulldogs. On the left, this is a team that I've got from the AFL website. And on the right, this is a team that I've got from the Big Footy website. And just sort of average it out and look for the team that basically had the most likes. So let's have a look. In the centre, on the AFL selected team, you've got McRae, Libba, Hunter. On the half forward line, Bont and Dunkley. And the followers, you've got Treloar and Baz. In the Big Footy team, you've got Treloar, Libba and Hunter. Smith and Bont on that half forward role, and then you've got McRae and Dunkley as the followers. So what's similar with both? Well, in both teams, Libba is right in the centre there. Hunter is on a wing. I think we can pretty much lock away Hunter on a wing. And we've also got Bont as a half forward as well. And we know that Bont is pretty flexible. Now, that can be great, you know, for the coach, for Bevo, having flexible players. But when it comes to Supercoach, it's not always good to be flexible. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're playing, 80, 90% midfield time and just resting up forward and you can have an impact there, a goal assist, snag a goal yourself, that's worth its weight in gold. But if you're too flexible, then the coach might say, well, look, if I've got to choose between a certain amount of players to run through the middle and someone does have to miss out, then I'm going to put the most flexible player that can play that forward role or a back role, whatever it is, and I'm going to give them a little bit more time outside of the midfield. And that can be detrimental to a player's scoring as well. Now, again, this is purely a guess. We don't know where they're going to play, but what we can do is we can look at some stats such as the CBAs from last season. And what I'm going to particularly focus on when I do look at the Dogs numbers, particularly from last year, is the 6 games from round 12 to 18, where all of these guys played in the same side together. CBAs are a great stat, as a high CBA count generally leads to some pretty high scoring. Blokes like Neil, Oliver, Titch and co. all have very high CBA attendances. And what's great about those guys in particular is that they have a consistent role from week to week. We know they'll be spending 90% of their time on the ball. But with Bevo the magnet switcher and the arrival of Adam Treloar, some of these Dogs may need to spend some time elsewhere. So looking at the chart, there are certainly 2 standouts here. Bont and McRae are clearly the 2 most preferred mids to start in the middle. And it's funny because Bont was the most obvious option to play forward this year, in my opinion. But it's also very obvious that Bevo likes him at the CBAs. Look, does he possibly start in the middle and then drift forward? Yeah, maybe. We'll wait and see. But the numbers suggest that Baz and Libba are next in line. And look at poor old Josh Dunkley. Red all over the place. Is this part of the reason why he wanted out? Clearly his most suited role is an inside mid, and looking at his CBAs, he was pushed out of that role. So he looks like the player whose scoring may have been impacted the most. And look, I'm just guessing here, but I think that part of Bevo's pitch for Dunkley to stay would have been to promise him his preferred role. But who knows if that's the case. You know, his role really flipped on its head after his injury. Take a look at the CBA percentages pre-injury versus post-injury. So in round 1, he attended 17 out of 22. Round 2, 20 out of 25. Round 3, 13 out of 15 for a total of 81%, which is a really, really high number. But if you look at post-injury, and we can see some of his scores there, you know, 7, 2, 0, 4, 6, 5. He attended 40 out of 178, which is only 22%. So clearly looking at the numbers, he is the one that suffered. Was there a reason why? I'm not too sure. But pre-injury, he was one of the most preferred mids to have starting in the middle. And look at the bottom there at Adam Treloar. So we can see round 6 up to 18 there. 9, 6, 16, 15, 8, 13, 14. So he was also preferred by Collingwood anyway to start in the centre. So given the fact that he has had a history of having a fairly high CBA attendance rate in Adam Treloar, what's going to happen with him next year at the Dogs? Really not too sure. Now to take a look at the Dogs' season averages from last year. So as you can see, all pretty healthy averages: 92, 116, 104, 106, 115, and 121. But what we do need to remember is there are only 6 games out of the total of 17 where all of these 6 players actually played in the same side. And before I actually crunched the numbers, I would have assumed that the season averages would have gone down slightly. But as we can see, it was actually quite the opposite. Baz improved his season average by 9. Bont by a massive 22. Dunkley by 3. Libba by a healthy 15. Hunter by 6. And the only player not to actually improve their season average and their scoring output was Jack McRae. He was actually minus 11. But what that does go to show is that it's a bit of a myth that if you've got a stacked midfield, there's not enough points to go around, because we can see there 110, 121, 121, 107, 138, and a 101. They all managed to score at a really healthy rate while playing in the same side. But what we do need to also take into account is that there's no Adam Treloar there, and that's going to be a major difference going into 2021. So, who do we put on the watch list? To be honest, this video has probably raised a few more questions than it's given answers, but as we said before, it is really, really hard to predict at this stage of the season. Who am I putting on the watch list? Well, I think we've got the 3 usual suspects there. Jack McRae, he's been Mr. Consistent over the past few years for us. As I said before, one of those real auto locks in seasons gone past. The second one is Bont. We know what his ceiling's like, can go absolutely massive. Major question mark on him is how much time does he spend forward going into next year. And the third one is Josh Dunkley. So that may be a little bit of a surprise for some people, given the fact that his CBAs went right down last year. But I am holding on to hope that Bevo has promised him his old rollback. You know that I'm a massive fan of Dunkley if you followed me last year. And the biggest thing of all with Dunkley is that he has that DPP status and he is available as a forward. In regards to the other blokes, Baz, I think he'll be an elite midfielder one day, but he's just got too much competition at this stage. Libba, again, could be one of those pod picks, but someone that I'm not really looking at. I think there's better value out there. Hunter, even though he had some really good numbers last year, I think he's got too much of an outside role. And Treloar, personally for me, he's just too much of an injury risk, and I'm looking to go safe with my players this year. So that's my thoughts on the Dogs midfield. Thanks as always for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed yet, please feel free to do so. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. I have been a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to the social media platforms, but I think I have upped the game from last year anyway. So thanks again for watching. Have a Merry, Merry Christmas, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Take care, guys. Bye.